Hi, this is Jan Guarino, and you're in Fearless Watercolors. Welcome. We're going to be doing a wildlife scene today of a white, I don't know, what is it, egret or heron or I don't know what, a white bird flying. And it was taken by a friend of mine. I want to make mention of that it was a photo that I do have the rights to use. I asked the photographer. She does beautiful wild birds. I don't know how she does. She must sit there all day and click away. I have no idea, but I thought this was so beautiful. It was originally a horizontal and I made it a vertical. So let me switch cameras. And this is the photo. The actual photo was very horizontal and had much more of this brush going on. But I thought that this would be a very good cropping of it because it really told the story of the the reflections, kind of really deep and dark in here. We're going to build that. And of course, this is a lot about saving our whites. However, I did mask. So I normally don't. Some of you had made mention that you hadn't had masking fluid with you. I want to zoom in and just show you the masking that I did do on this because it really is, I really tried to keep it quite painterly and not just straight lines. But what I want to also say about masking is that when we take the masking off, and I'm going to take it off sooner than later, I don't want to have it on too long because I want to see the marks that are there, and then I want to do something with them. So this is our inspiration. We have our paints, our brushes. What are we going to be using? I'm going to be using some big brushes and some little brushes. I think I'm always forever going to have a round number 10 with me and a mop brush. I think that should do it. I always love to have a rigger with me because I think that there's always something really great that a rigger is going to give me. And that will be a really good start with that. I think a sprayer, a dot sprayer or a spray bottle, I think is always a good idea to have also. So I recommend that you have both of those because they do very different things. And I'm going to get my regular spray bottle out as well. And so the dot sprayer will give us more of the water reflection. And what I also want to point out is that the story here is really this bird and this wildlife and the water reflection. But I also think that part of it is not realizing that you don't have to paint to the edges. You really, can do something more of a vignette, which I really, really enjoy that conversation of just not painting to the edges and letting things drip down and giving things unfinished edges. Scrap piece of paper. Let's play with our colors a little bit and see what we're going to do. And I do really enjoy pushing my colors as well. So not necessarily going with exactly what I see here, but I'm going to be hard pressed not to use my green gold, which I love. I use that color more and more. So I definitely love the idea of the green gold for that wispy kind of part of the top of the reeds there. And I think if you mix it a little bit with some orange, or that's Quin Gold Deep, that also looks really pretty. And I think that's what I'm referring to when I say, like, do I have to paint to the edge of the paper to know that these are going beyond the paper? And so the trick there is to make sure that your marks don't stay stuck on the top of the paper, but go off the paper. That's really, and if we paint even into this corner, this upper left corner here, it will say there's more going on, but I don't need to necessarily paint it. Let your eye go off that edge. So I think green gold and Quin Gold Deep are great colors. If you don't have those colors, you can definitely use a light yellow and an orange. Any orange would work very, very nicely. Just want you to play with these colors kind of merging together a little bit. And then we have this kind of undefined line of that, you know, the reflection and the water, it's not really very defined. Okay, that tells you you don't have to define it either. So let's play with a good color for that. And I think a good color for something like that might just be a really rich violet. I think that would be very striking. But you must use a lot of paint and not a lot of water to do that. So I think that that would be good. You can go into your indigo. I think that would be a good, nice, deep, rich, dark, beautiful. And with your rigger, you can actually just carry some of those marks straight up into your reeds, right? Just pull them right up. Let me get this camera a little bit better for you guys. Okay, oh, it's moving around. Stay for me. It's being a little stubborn. I'm not sure why it's doing that, but I'll have to look at that. Anyway, I'll just move my painting around a little bit. But if you load this up with color right here, you can use all your colors. You could add your green gold in there. You could add your quin gold deep in there and your violet, and just let all of those colors just kind of blend and murk together. They're murking, right? They're murking together. And then you can really just play with this color, just playing down. Now, that's a motion that I do fast and you might miss it. So I'm going to recharge up here. That's my indigo with a little bit more of my violet. What violet doesn't really matter. But I'm going to show this to you again. I take my brush, it's a clean brush, and it just kind of lightly remove excess water on my mat, my drying mat. This is a drying mat here. You can't really see because it's black on black. And I come up to these areas and I kiss it with my brush and I allow it. See what's happening? I'm allowing it to move into water. I'm not pushing it with my brush. And that is a very big difference to how I paint. From what I see other artists doing. So I just want to point that out to you. Recharge the center, right? Recharge that center up with color. Any colors, all the colors, all of them. And with my spray bottle, I'm going to just, again, this would be in place of kissing it with my brush. I'm just giving it water and I'm letting it cascade down. Oh, beautiful. Oh, yeah, come on. Look at that happening. Look at that. You've got to go straight in and see this. I'm going to zoom in on this. Yeah. See how it's just kind of taking, now it's gravity and water that's doing that. Your color will lighten as it comes down. Let me turn this brighter for you guys. It's going to dissipate and it's going to get too light. So what you need to do is recharge that area, that kind of area of the edge where we really can't tell the water from the reeds, the water's edge. I can't really tell what's on top and what's on bottom. I just added all my colors and I'm letting them travel down, just travel down. I'm holding my paint or my paper a little vertical. You could see that orange area in there. This is undefined area, but notice I'm adding it in the middle. A lot of paint and not a lot of water. Okay, that's what I'm doing there. This is what we're going to be doing to our painting.
She puts paint and then a clean brush that's a little damp.
Okay, I'm going to mute you, Cheryl. Sorry, I just want to.
Can you also
yeah.
do the kiss thing one more time, Jan?
Yeah, I'll go through that, Cheryl. Okay, I will do it. I just want to watch this coming down because this is really, if you get drips here, fine, that's great. I love drips. I'll show you kissing once again. It's something I do all the time. Charging up these colors in here will keep it dark and kind of undefined edges. The other thing that I want you to think about is taking a flat angled brush with no paint and just carrying it those horizontal marks. Okay, just carrying those horizontal marks where you see, and that says water. So let me back out of this a little bit. So here we're just going to have, we're going to see all of our colors in here. If it gets too light, just continue to drop in more paint and less water.
Are you using indigo or violet when you keep?
I'm using all of those colors, every
together?
single color. I'm dropping every color in here. All 4 colors are going in here because I want those reflections to be all 4 of those colors. Okay, I'm using all 4 colors in there. Just keep loading it up because as it moves, the color is going to keep coming down, and it's going to get lighter and weaker. So we just want to make sure that we hold on to that. And at the same time, you could, well, not at the same time, but you can also be sure that you carry those reeds back up again. This is 140, so it's curling a little bit. So I'm just curling it back in. Kissing. Here's my brush, clean brush, just a little bit of paint, and I'm going to kiss it, the edge, just kiss the edge of the paint so that it has some kind of water to softly move into. Now, as we come around, this is all really wet. I'm just going to quickly draw in my, whatever it is, white bird. I just have part of it in here because I really didn't draw it in. As we come over to our white bird, okay, we're going to do the same kind of thing. We need this bright, dark, rich color. So you can come in and you could just let the water, right now I'm just kind of painting with water, okay? Just really painting with water. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite the paint now from this side, going to tilt my paper, and I'm going to invite it to go that way. And what I can do with my brush is I could sort of just guide it a little bit where I want it to go. Of course, we did mask it, so, but this is just so that you kind of have a sense of where I'm going with this whole thing. Now, do I really need to paint this lower area here, this water? No, I think that could be a beautiful vignette, but I do want to have some of these other colors. I just added the indigo. I do want to add the other colors, particularly to the top of our white-winged bird. I'm going to kiss it with water and let it flow. It's so funny. Sometimes when I do these little demos, I like what I did in the demo more than how it comes out on the painting. I'm going to, again, drop in all of my colors just so that it flows away. And I got to remember, how did I do that? And how did I get that effect? And of course, it's just one of those things. This is still wet. I want this to go murkier yet. So I'm just going to add, I'm making mud, basically. That's what I'm doing. You know, our colors here do make mud. Orange and blue. Orange, blue are complementary colors. Violet and yellow, complementary colors. So that's how we control our mud making. So you have to work a few things at the same time. Our reeds kind of coming up out of the water. That lack of suggestion in here, right? Lack of suggestion. And how it carries into our water with our, I'm going to use a little slightly larger flat angled brush. Now you could see that let me go closer for you on this. When I use my wet brush to add some of this horizontal, where there's water and where there's paint, it lightens it and then it carries it into being a color when I get to the other side. It's kind of perfect. So I just want you to play with those thoughts for a little bit. And then I will do a quickie on how we're going to do our bird. But these are such great watercolor techniques to really give us some fabulous water reflections. Look at that. Yeah, baby. Okay. Now, again, you could do this with just water, or you could do it with your color. And both work really, really nicely. One is a little bit more subtle. The water is certainly a little bit more subtle. You could also do these marks on the drier side, meaning when the painting is drier. However, I think I really just love the wet into wet.
Is when you're using that angled brush, are you wetting that first, Jan, the one that you're just using now?
Yeah, a little bit. There's a little bit of water on there. If you have too much water, it'll come out as a blob. That's why we do these test runs so that you could feel how much water should be on the brush. So really like observe how damp or wet the brush is really more on the damp side. It's not a lot of water at all. But feel it. This is why we're doing this now, so that you could get that feel for exactly that. That's what we're, sort of up against here. Is it's a timing thing and it's a feel thing. It's what's happening on your paper. Observe what's happening on your paper so that you could, adjust your paintbrush the next time you go to do something like that. So yeah, it's definitely one of those techniques that just kind of needs to help have you watch what's happening on the paper. So that's more important. How much water? I can't say. That's why where's my other mat? That's why I have these mats here, because I always control how much water is on my paintbrush right here. I'm gonna lay my white one down. I just washed it, so it's nice and clean for you guys. I meant to put it down before. This way you can see. I don't really need to see how much water or how much paint is on my brush, but you guys may need to see that. That's a big part of how I use it. So I go into my water, I clean my brush. See, there's a mark that I just left, and now I can go back in and try these marks again. How much water? I can't say. It really depends on your own conditions in your spot. But I'll tell you, I like the idea of the vignette up here, and I like the idea of the vignette in the lower right as well. So a little bit of both is actually probably a lot of fun. And as this dries, okay, I'm sort of getting these dry brush marks. That's kind of fun too. So they're known as thirsty brush, which just means that the brush is sort of dry. It's on the drier side, and it's skipping along the paper. It's using the texture of the paper to give me these nice skippy marks. And that could be pretty nice with all this water going on. That could actually be a pretty nice thing. We'll see if we want to do that in our final painting.
Did you just charge your brush with a lot of paint for this?
I've been charging. Yeah, I go in and charge it. Yep, my paint is right here. So I go in and charge it. And you need paint to do that kind of mark. Absolutely. You need paint, but not a lot of water. This is where you start playing around with how much water to how much paint and whatnot. That's why we do these little warm-ups, but it's also something you need to monitor all the time with your own painting. You know, I get that you working the way you are, it's that you have to look up, see where I'm at, and then try it. But that's, you know, the great part about this is that, you know, you guys know you get the recording. And you could try it again and again. So I'm just going in maybe with a little bit more water. As I lift, it really does start looking so wonderful. And I'm pulling paint out and giving it a little bit more ripples. And two things I'm just going to say to you right now is two things that I'd really like for you to be aware of. Number one, on the top, we don't want these equal lined up, perfect. We don't want that. And when it comes to your ripples, whether this way or this way, we don't want those equal either. We want them to be unique and different. Your ripples should be a little tighter, further apart. As you go back, they should be a little longer and a little bit further apart as you come towards the front. So closer and smaller as further away. It says perspective. Okay. And then a fun thing to do, we used our spray bottle to sort of move this, but if you wanted to add some droplets, take your dot sprayer and drop in some droplets, which is always a nice thing to do. I'll just go closer and show that to you. And you can see the little droplets that happened here. Okay. And then I just want to show you the ideas that I have for our white bird. Again, I really don't know birds. I'll have to ask my girlfriend what it is. That is my orange Queen Gold Deep. And now a beautiful color to use for the wings. And if you look at the photograph, I do see it. It's sort of a very soft violet. You can use our shadow violet. You could use Moonglow. You could use any of the opaque colors that we have from Holbein, our lavender and lilac. Those are beautiful colors. So I'm just going to go in and I'm using kind of a combination. These colors, by the way, you could make with any purple or blue or pink and adding a little bit of white to them. They're makeable colors. It's just, I kind of like just going into my palette and it's right there. So we're just going to follow the beautiful shapes that are going on with the wings. And that, of course, is a good use of our violet because we did use violet in the painting. So it's a good way to bridge the palette. And before we know it, we have a white bird flying. It looks a little out of focus. I'm not sure why. Let's go that way. But there we have it. That's sort of where I'm going with the painting. And of course, we'll build all of these beautiful wings and whatnot. We'll get into that. But I wanted you to get the feel of how I want to do the undefined horizon where the reeds and the water sort of meet. Now, I am using that same technique here where I'm just going in with my flat brush, not too wet, and lifting out a little bit of color to just say, oh, maybe there's some reeds that are down there. You need to have a clean brush to do this. And let's just back out. And I think that that sort of tells the story pretty nicely. So lots of good techniques for us to use. Great watercolor techniques. It's going to go fast. So if it doesn't go fast, you're going to just overwork it. And you're going to lose the spontaneity that can happen with watercolor, right? And we don't want to lose that. So let's go ahead and paint.
Can't hear you, Jan.
Okay, technical issues aside, let's start painting. Okay, we're going to do the same thing that we did before. Same idea with the colors, charging up, nondescript edge to the water, and where the now this is a bigger piece of paper. Okay, so we're going to need a lot more paint to do this. So just keep that in mind. When you use your mop brush, you're definitely going to have a lot of water on that brush. So just keep those things in mind because we're just going to need a whole lot more to make this work on a large piece of paper. That's why kind of working small sometimes really is kind of nice, right? I'm just going to wet some of my colors just so that they're ready to go. And all right, let's get going. So we started with that one area with the our reeds up here. That's pretty dry. If you could see what's going on there, that's super dry. But as I add more paint and water, it's going to, it's too dry. I wanted to add the dry brush later on, okay? Make sure you go off your edge here. You don't want to stay confined within. That'll help you with your composition. And as we come down, remember, we're just going to give it water so that I'm going to go all over here. Just give it beautiful marks. And we're going to switch to our violet. Remember, that's the complement to the yellow, and indigo. Now, I'm not really playing around. I'm not really defining an edge here. Because I want to carry this up and I want to carry it over. I'm going to come up to that masked area with a big mop brush. And this is going to get really nice and murky. Feather this out, feather, 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 feather that out. You're not ready to finish a mark, just feather it down to nothing. I want to make sure I give this way more paint in here. Now, there is something you could do if you want to get more paint and less water, and that is you could actually add a lot of wet paint to your palette, right? You can just add a really nice glob. You got to control it. That's a little, something we don't do very often is work with wet paint. So if you wanted to, and I'll show you how to do it. It gets a little tricky because we need to, of course, have our paint be wet and yet don't want to get too heavy with it. So I'm just going to put some fresh, I just put the wrong color in there. Okay, that was not good. That's my primary blue. I'm going to scoop it out of there and put it where it belongs, right there. Okay. That's my primary blue. That's not the color I want to go. I wanted indigo, which is right here. So if you work with wet paint, it'll be a very different experience, but it could be really super great when we're trying to do these super dark areas, right? So here, so I had some primary blue on there and that's coming through. That wasn't the color I really wanted to go in, but that's nice and deep and dark and inky because it's wet paint. Meaning I put it fresh into my palette. So working with wet paint is a super great way to get some nice, deep, dark colors. I'm just going to put a little bit in there, my violet. And so this way I have enough paint to carry me down, to move into these other areas that I want to go into. Now, remember, we added all our colors as we came down. If you're not ready to finish an edge, feather it out. So I'm going to feather this right here, just kiss it with my brush, right? And now I'm holding my paint, and painting a little bit of vertical, a little bit on an angle. This is my wet paint sitting there, right? I'm moving it around a little bit. So this is a little different for us. I'm definitely going to go in and get some green gold. Drop that in. I want all those colors in that area, that undefined area. I want it to go up and I want it to go down. So you could kind of see that green in there now. And then I'm going to add my Queen Gold Deep. It's a little tricky, but just let it kind of float away and move on your painting. Just let it move. Need more paint? Add more paint. It's the way to go. When you add more paint, try to monitor how much water you have, because there's a lot of water on your paper, right? And now I want this color to move down. So I'm going to hold my paper a little on an angle, and I'm going to bring it down with using my spray bottle. And there it goes. If it gets drippy, I think that's kind of cool. I like what's happening there. So I'm not going to really try to control that. I think that's actually really, really cool. And that's just a fun part of watercolor, is those kinds of marks. They are a little on the, they can be scary. We're not used to, it's a little unexpected what might happen with them. But that's just part of watercolors, sort of that unexpected thing. So be okay with the unexpected. Let watercolors sort of be watercolors. It's just part of why we paint with watercolor, is because we don't know what's going to happen. Now, obviously, my indigo and my blue, my yellow, green, gold, all turn into a green. I want to tone it down a little bit. So I'm going to drop some violet in right there, right at my really undefinable borderline there. My
Janet, that line. Area, that undefinable borderline, when you put the paint on, did you wet the paper first? Because the
paper is soaking wet. And if you're working with a mop brush, yours should be pretty wet too.
So did you wet the paper first before you did it?
No. I had paper. I kissed it. Remember, we talked about kissing it. I kissed it.
Pulling all my stuff.
And then I added a spray bottle. So I did both actually. Yeah, it's this horizon line I'm really not, I really don't want that to be defined. I really want that to be just, I don't know where it's going. I have no idea. But the paper was wet from the paper, from the paint. And then, of course, I sprayed it and then it really went wet. So that's how, so did I wet the paper down first? No, I did not.
Okay.
Did it the same way I had demoed it in the first part of the class. Same thing. Bringing the water up to the wings. Just want to soften that watermark and have that come down. I don't want that to really be too hard. And if you turn your paper a little horizontal, if you wet the paper here, I am wetting the paper here, the paint will flow into there and you'll get these beautiful marks, these beautiful flow of color. It's tricky. There's no question about it. Painting this way is super tricky, but what a result you can get. I mean, it's just so elegant in terms of how we're approaching it. This is paint right from my palette. Is it wet? My paint is wet paint, meaning I took it directly out of the tube. Wet paint means I took it directly out of the tube. It's a better way to describe the difference. And I'm just sticking with those three colors, my violet, my green gold, my indigo, and my Queen Gold Deep. Let some beautiful things happen here. This is an interesting technique. I don't know if anybody has ever done this before, but when I add the paint here, I kind of flick it down and then I got dots kind of coming down. That's kind of it's scary. You don't know what's going to happen. I get that. But it's kind of cool also if you could sort of try it. I'm watching the paint sort of settle up here also, so you have to watch up there. I'm just feathering this out, feather, feather, feather. I'm not really ready to work there, so I'm just letting this kind of adding paint. Paying attention to your painting and looking up and seeing kind of what's happening with mine is a great way to just let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Let it flow, let it move. I love that flick down a little bit. I think that's really nice. And then, of course, watching your paint kind of travel across this way. If it's a little stuck, you could hit it with your spray bottle or even your dot sprayer. Watch what happens. It's different. It'll be different with both kinds of sprayers. See how like squiggly those lines are? Well, I think that's pretty cool. I like that. I have a hair in here that I want to get out before it dries in there. Okay, there it is. It's out. Remember, if you want some horizontal, take your brush and just go horizontal with it. How much you do of that? Well, that's entirely up to what's happening on your paper and how you want to paint it. That's really such a personal kind of thing. So much of this just depends on what's happening on your paper. I'm watching up here, I'm letting it flow back, and then I'm floating it down. Kind of really haven't addressed up here too much, and I'd like to. Got to keep your eye kind of all around here to have this kind of technique work.
I have a hard edge at the horizon and I cannot get rid of it. Any suggestions? I tried,
Yes,
doing
paint
this thing. I
and
tried.
water. Paint and water, Cheryl. Paint and water will move stuck paint. Paint and water. That's your answer. It's always that answer.
To just put more paint on it.
More paint and water. That will help you with a hard edge. Yeah.
Thanks.
And also, you kind of have to keep an eye out for that. That's the other thing, like feather and edge. When you're not going to have a hard edge or a specific edge, you definitely need to know that you can use that kiss technique at any time, and you should. That's a really big technique.
It got rid of it. Thank you.
I know what I'm talking about sometimes.
That's why I ask a lot of questions.
I know you do. And it's good to ask questions, because if it's happening on yours, it's probably happening on other people, and they, don't really ask it, and then they end up with a hard edge. So that's, it's always good to ask. So I'm just playing with this area. It's still damp, by the way, but it got a little lighter than I wanted it to. So I want to deepen it. So I'm going to deepen it with all of my colors. Again, I'm going in with all of my colors. I'm letting them drip down. This helps bridge the palette, which is really a great way to think about your paintings. Maybe that's just a little spot of sunlight. Look, I have another spot of sunlight over there. I didn't plan on that, but I like it. And I'm glad it happened. And I'm going to go with it. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to keep those. I like these drippy effects that are happening. It's interesting. Like watercolors is really kind of like a biofeedback. It's going to tell you what's going on immediately. And you're going to tell it what you want it to do. And it's probably going to, maybe listen. This is such a great lesson in having it speak to you and understanding what it is you want it to do.
It's also a great lesson in letting go.
Yeah, well, that's right? Watercolor for you.
I know. It's
spray bottle, dot
sprayer. The more you can let it go in watercolor, the more you can let it go in life, I think.
If you could let your watercolor be a watercolor, I think that that's really special. I think that that's just a beautiful, this just happened. Okay. All of this just happened. It didn't happen on my warm up. It's happening here. So I'm not going to mess with that. That's pretty great, Some splatter. I'm just not happy till I have splatter on my painting. And you could do reverse strips also. You can have them go up into your painting as well. I'm just patient. I just kind of wait to see what's going to happen. And then have it travel a little horizontally too. See how it just travels it's going to do more beautiful marks for you than your brush will ever do. That's what I've learned about watercolors, just the beauty that happens when it does its own thing. You could guide it along a little bit. So what happened here was just, in my opinion, just magic. I'm really just okay with how that moved itself. There's just something special with these glows that are happening. I think they're going to work. I need to lift the masking off of our, our white winged friend here. But I really won't know if I like all of that but that's another lesson, right? Don't judge your work too soon. Don't judge it so soon, because what happened and what you may not think you liked may actually be just fine. I do find that people really do try to correct their paintings way too soon. So I would just say, really try to avoid that if you can. I'm charging up my horizon here, my horizon, AKA lack of horizon. I want that paint to sort of move a little bit. Again, what happened in your paintings is probably very different than what happened in mine. That's just the nature of watercolor, right? It's just sort of the nature of, and it's a beautiful part of watercolor, right? It's just such a beautiful part of watercolor. So I just have my rigger, and I'm just adding some more of these beautiful reeds up here. So that's my quin gold, and I'm going to, and my green gold. When I don't want too many marks to be so perfect, I'll hit it with my dot sprayer, and I'll let it sort of affect the marks. Make sure your marks go off the edge of the paper. That's really important. Otherwise, I mean, you don't have to. We can always crop in later, right? We know we can do that. But try to think of painting to your edges and beyond your edges. That's kind of cool. Great place to bridge your palette right here, and all in the water, of course. And of course, it really needed to be charged up so heavily because of our, I don't want to go back into it. I've had that happen with my paintings where I went back in, and it doesn't do the job that I could have done, I felt firsthand. Lifting out of the water, look at those reflections, just lifting, gently, gently out of the water, right? Just so subtle. I have some really major watercolor blossoms going on there. I'm really not going to worry about them just yet, because I want this to dry, and I really want to see what everything looks like with my my bird, my white winged friend here. Yeah, I kind of don't want to disturb too much going on here, but there's some nice, I could definitely see splattering up here. I'm going to take this and add a little bit of my dot sprayer to the bottom, just to give some water droplets. And remember, if there's a section of your painting that you're not happy with, we can work on painting it some more, or we could also crop it out. We have those options. I'm not going to worry about this area. I have a lot of backwashes and watercolor blossoms going on there. I'm not really going to worry about it because I want to see how it dries, and I want to see how the everything lifts from my masking fluid, which I think will need, some massaging, right? It's going to need some massaging. It's just the way watercolors are when we use our masking. Some people put their masking on with such perfection that they, it's like doesn't leave room for things to happen. So I kind of do like leaving room for things to happen, as you guys know. Nobody comes into my classes to paint tighter. It's just not what people come here for. I'm going to go give myself some clean water so I can work on the white bird. So I'll let you guys work on that and check in. I am going to give this a little bit of a glaze over here. I got a big thing going on there. I'm not going to worry about it. If I try to correct that now, I'm really going to muck it up. So I'm just going to leave it. And I probably can go over it with paint. If you try to correct this too soon, you're really going to mess your painting up. So the first thing I want to do, this is still a little damp, but what I'm going to do is give this a little bit of that kind of bluish violet that we talked about before. Now you can use a good choice is going to be either those Holbein colors that I mentioned, or I'm going to use a little bit of cerulean here. I think that would be a good color with a little bit of violet. And you could control just how much you use those two colors with some water. And I'm going to check to see how I did with my masking. I'll probably need to have it be something that, I'll go closer for you guys. I'll probably need to use a hair dryer to tone it, to dry it before I lift the masking. But that shadow is so beautiful on our bird, our white friend here. So I want to just go in and see. I don't want to see how I did with my masking. My feeling is my masking, I need to massage the painting way beyond my masking. That's my take on what I, just on masking in general. It's not the end all to my painting. But we can't lift it until we have until this is dry. You'll notice it's really darker underneath the wing there. And that I think is a great spot for a lost edge. So I think I'm going to lose that edge down the road. And I'll show you how I do that. Don't let me forget to show that to you. So I'm just using my number 10, and I'm using cerulean and my violet that I used before. Now, when you want to go darker, add more paint. And if you masked, you really don't have to worry about having your paints be, you could go right over the areas. That's what masking gives you, but it's also a little weird because we're used to saving our whites, right? So it kind of gives you a little bit of both, a little bit of confidence. I'm going to drop in a little bit of indigo. Fortunately, I got that crazy I got like a phthalo blue in there. I'm going to have to clean that out. I'm going to drop in a little bit of my indigo in here as well, just to darken it right in here a little bit. Just letting it kind of carry out. And because my paint is wet, it's kind of sitting there. You just have to be really careful that you add enough water that it doesn't dot it too heavily. That's another little bit of a danger to our working that way. Meaning with wet paint, fresh paint right out of the tube. I'm going to lose this edge now. So with the tip of my brush, I'm just massaging that edge. This is not masked under here. I'm just massaging that edge so that it just goes soft. I love lost edges. It's just with a little bit of water, I'm just losing right under there. I don't really need it to tell the story. I don't really need it. And of course, we're definitely going to want to make sure we don't have any hard edges. That's where I went and got clean water so I could just control some of these edges. I don't want the paint sitting against the wings too much. And of course, we could do all of that when we get a little closer to our lifting our masking. I don't know what happened up here. Again, watercolors are fixable. Wow, that blossom just keeps moving. Look at that blossom. If I touch that, it's still damp. If I try to correct that, I will definitely be in a danger zone. And that's why I think people say I can't correct watercolors. It's just a matter of waiting till the right time, actually. That's all it is. It's just waiting for the right time. And how do you know the right time? Well, the way you know the right time is when you have a lot of miles on your brushes and you knew that you should not have gone in there and did what you did. Like probably right here where I am right now, it's probably I should have left it alone. But I'm going to try to see what happens. Probably should have just left that alone and lifted my masking fluid and saw what happened. So I'm just going to carry it out and see what happens with that. Okay, so major blossom going on here. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to play with it because I really want to get into the bird, and then I'll go back in and do other areas. If this paper area here is damp and you wanted to add more of your striations, either horizontal or vertical, now is a good time to do them. Sandpaper is a risky time to work, but there's definitely a value to working it. And this is just, again, miles on your brushes, lots of paintings that were unsuccessful. That's the way you learn. You don't come out being having a perfect painting without really the practice that goes into it. It's just the way it is. I'm just going to see if I like these squiggles. I think I like them. Don't do it if you're not ready to do it. If they seem a little too perfect, there's something else you could do. Again, it's just tools of the trade, and it's things that you try and that you see work. Okay. I can take a dry brush, and I can just kind of get rid of that if I'm not happy with that. Just kind of melt it into the paper a little bit. I probably wasn't ready for that mark just yet, but that's okay. It's a good learning. Every time I sit and I paint, I learn every single time. And if you're not painting, you are, if you think every painting I do comes out perfect, it does not. You don't see a lot of the paintings that don't work out there. I'm using the back sides or whatever. So I'm just feeling my paper. If it's damp, I don't want to lift it off. If it's wet, you really don't want to lift it off. But if it feels sort of dry, here's how you can tell. You take your rubber cement pickup. Don't rub it. You just tap it and see if it's sticky and if it comes up. See how it's pulling away from my paper? Go like that. And instead of rubbing it, get that extra goop off, okay? You don't want the goop on there. And just press and lift. If it's not ready to come off, it won't come off. It'll only come off if it's ready.
What else can we use besides a rubber cement pickup?
The other thing, if you don't have a rubber cement pickup, I highly recommend getting one, because liquid rubber cement is nothing more than masking fluid is liquid rubber cement. That's what it is. But you can also use, interestingly enough, I've seen saran wrap. You got to have saran wrap. But if you use saran wrap, you're going to be rubbing. So make sure that it's dry. I don't think you're going to get, because there's really no way you're holding the saran wrap and you're not really pulling it up like this, unless you wrap it on something. It is just like we've got, as a graphic artist, we've been using these 100 years, forever. Go get one, definitely. Liquid, a rubber cement pickup is so important.
Can I have one of the gray rubbery erasers?
No, that's an eraser. You don't want to use that. No.
That's something totally
not going to work. It's an eraser. That's an eraser. That's called a kneaded eraser.
Right. Okay, so what you're using is not an eraser.
No, this is a rubber cement pickup. They come square. I cut mine in half. Let's see if I have a whole one here. I don't think I have a whole one.
We're not talking about the Mr. Clean thing, are we?
No, we are not. We are talking about a rubber cement.
Okay, I don't. It's the first time I'm hearing that
so
word.
Saran wrap will lift it because it's kind of sticky and tacky.
Okay.
But you're going to have to dry it to ensure that the paper is completely dry. It won't have this tackability that I'm getting here. It will lift the rubber cement with the masking fluid. If you use saran wrap, it does work really well, but you're going to have to rub it. And then if your paper isn't completely dry, you're going to have an issue with that. It's going to move your paint, and the rubber cement, the masking fluid will not necessarily lift off very well. So you need to. It's looking pretty good. I think I masked it pretty well. I really took my time with it, and I really did it in a very painterly way. And I could see the benefits of doing that. However, see how I'm dragging it now? This is dry over here. That's how you'd have to use your, oh yeah, okay. Right, that is looking pretty good. Yeah, these come as a square. They sell them everywhere. Michael's, Hobby Lobby, Staples. Okay, I'm not unhappy with my bird. And I'm not unhappy. If you rub your fingers on it, you're going to feel maybe areas that it didn't lift off quite yet. And if your paper isn't dry, dry it. So I want to go closer and just show you how the masking went down, because this was really, really such an important part of this painting. It's a little too close. Let me back it up a little bit. So you could really see how I didn't do like just a straight line here. I really kind of had it be a little irregular, you know. The areas that I masked, I could see fixing some areas here, even going in and doing a little bit more work on the wings. Masking fluid is tricky, tricky stuff. But there, that again is a really good learning lesson, is just to practice putting masking fluid on and seeing, is your masking techniques working? You guys know that I use these, and this is what I use, these dental picks. This is what I use to put my masking fluid on. And the masking fluid that I use is called PBO. That is the brand that I use. And it's a very soft bluish gray color. And I like that color because it doesn't interfere with my painting. Okay, this is it here. This is my PBO. And this is how the rubber cement pickups come, just in a square like this. And then all that extra stuff comes off and you just kind of pick it off the edges. So, yeah, just some things that I've learned. If you try to put your masking fluid on with your brush, it will ruin it unless you first dip your brush into a soapy solution works. Some kind of glycerin kind of thing would work also. Something to get into the bristles of your paintbrush, or you simply have a paintbrush that you devote to masking fluid and nothing else. All right, so I'm just going to go in and do.
Beautiful.
I'm going to go in and do a little bit more work on the beak here is orange. So I'm going to go in and do that. I really did know that the masking was a major part of this painting. And so in knowing that, I really wanted to make sure that I really liked my marks. And even then, when I've liked my marks, it doesn't necessarily mean that I liked them when I took them off. It really doesn't mean that. It's so interesting how that can happen. You know, you put it down and you're like, I think it looks good. You don't know until you lift it. And then what I'll say is that when I lift it, it's not the end all be all. I need to still work around the painting, the edges. So I'm just going into these areas now, and I'm just going into some of these darker areas with the shadows of the neck, and under the wingspan it's even more dramatic. Right under here. The wings have something interesting going on that I wanted to point out that I saw, and that was almost an luminosity to them. So I'm going to bring a little bit of my orange into there just to let it appear like a little sunlight got through it. You see that? It's subtle, but it's there, and I like it. I really like these King Art brushes. They really give me a nice tip. This is my number 10, and I have a super great tip on it. Of course, you always have your shadow violet or your moon glow or your Holbein colors to gently use very soft colors. I chose to use my cerulean and my violet to get some of these colors here. I did not go into my other colors, but I could have. There's so many ways to go. Now, if here's a trick, guys, and again, I'm totally not paying attention right now because this is still wet, that big blossom I have going on. I will show you how I'm going to fix that. But here's a trick, and I use this a lot in painting. If you're not sure what you're painting in here, work upside down. And when you work upside down, it's sort of, you become a little disorientated, which is a good thing in the case of this, because we don't want to have ourselves be guessing what these shapes are. So what it will do is it will help you to just find the beautiful shapes that are in the wings and in the body. I use this technique a lot. You kind of look and say, I'm not exactly sure what that is. I don't know what I'm painting. And then what happens is you imagine that you do know, and then you make mistakes. And it doesn't look right. It looks off, and you don't know why. And the why is because what you couldn't see or figure out, you made assumptions, and you ended up not doing the right assumptions. And I hope that makes sense, because it's painting this way is such a powerful way to get outside of yourself and just find beautiful shapes. And what you could do is hold your finger where the shape that you want to paint is, and then your brush will go to where it needs to paint. That technique always works when you're lost in any situation. Paint upside down, paint sideways, paint any other way than right side up. Let me go closer for you guys. I just want to make sure that I have really good marks on those wingspan. This is just my cerulean with a little bit of my violet on my brush. So some of the marks that maybe you made with your masking fluid might be a little too hard. So you just have to soften them a little bit. And obviously this is all in shadow, so we want that to appear. Shadows are always cool colors to me. They really give me a chance to interpret them. But in this case, I really do see these beautiful blues and violets. it's kind of there. And if you sensitize your eyes to these colors, you will start seeing them everywhere. You know, you think trees are green, but I love hearing when my students say, yeah, it was that beautiful color of cascade. And I love hearing that because it says that you're sensitizing your eyes to cools and warms, greens, different greens, you know, whether it has a little bit more yellow in it or whether it has more turquoise or blue in it. Those types of responses, you know, sensitize your eyes. I remember, and I've often talked about it in class, is when I was in FIT and we had a teacher who would have us work from a live model, and she would sensitize our eyes to seeing all of the colors in skin tone. I'm going to turn this right side up. So we sensitized our eyes to seeing the oranges and the blues and the violets, you know, that are in skin, not skin. Everyone's skin tone is totally different. So that was, you know, just one of those cool lessons that I never forgot from a lot of years ago. Just doing those little feet, those little flying feet. Using a little bit of indigo with a little bit of my Quin Gold Deep. I love details as much as anyone does, but I don't want the whole thing to be details. I want to add the details where I want the eye to go. I want to tell the story with my details or my lack of details. Now let me back out. If your paper has a little bit of a bump to it, it means there's still water in it. This is dry up here. So I'm going to go up there and I'm going to fix that watercolor blossom or do something with it. I happen to love these sprays of color that came through. It just kind of happened. Oh, there is one area I wanted to show you that I want to soften. And this may have happened in your painting where the paint just kind of sits on that edge. I want to soften that edge and I'm going to do it. It's dry with a little bit of moisture on a brush. This is a flat-edged brush. I could just go in and just loosen that paint up a little bit and not have it be so outliney. So if that happened to you, you may just want to manipulate it a little bit. I think that's the only place I kind of see it going on. Oh, and then I want to do the eye a little bit more, a little deeper. Okay. I'm not exactly happy. These marks got a little too dark, so I'm just going to lighten them up. Just go in with my brush. Notice I have my pad that I'm wiping right here. A little bit of water, not too much. That's how you could correct anything. I feel like, aside from this blossom here, I'm doing okay. So I'm going to work on this. And the way that I'm going to do it is what I had said earlier with color and a little bit of reverse definition. So if you have a hard edge or a blossom or something you're not happy with, I'm just going to come into it with more color. Does this take practice? You bet it does. You bet it does. I don't want to get any more hard edges, so I'm just going to take a brush and just feather this out. Don't want another hard edge, so I'm just going to carry it out. It just means that my paint moved into an area, the water just kept pushing the paint. So you need paint and you need water to eliminate that. Now, I don't want to really affect down here, so I'm going to do that kiss technique, which is where I just have a damp brush and I just kiss it with my brush. And I just say, okay, move where you want to move. Still have a little bit of a blossom there. So I'm just going to keep the process going that I have been doing. Just needs a little bit more. Let me take a little bit of, I have a bristle in there. So I'm just going to go for some of my darkest colors and keep adding them until I'm happy with it. Sometimes these end up being my favorite things that happen with my painting, and I didn't expect it to. I didn't expect to like what my mistake was. Didn't expect for it to come out as good as it did. But that's, that's part of painting. Otherwise, if you're not willing to take chances like this, and work on trying to figure out how to correct it, or maybe, just eliminate it or whatever. If you don't take those chances, you just paint in fear. And that's the fear that people have with watercolors, right? Everybody has that fear if they don't learn to sort of approach a painting in this respect. So you have to take chances. Some of the best things that's happened in my paintings, I didn't expect to have happen. All right, I'm going to do that kiss again right here. Just going to touch it with a little bit of water on my brush. Clean my brush, and again, have it gently come to my white feathered friend here. Just water. Just a soft edge. I want to charge it up with more color. This is what's going on for my painting. You may not have this going on with yours. Okay. I have to react to what's happening here. And that's an important thing for you to see, that something happened. I wasn't really, didn't know that was going to happen, but it happened. Now let me go closer. I'm going to guide this glob of paint to come up to my bird. Just going to guide it, gently guide it. Otherwise, if I don't paint this way, I'm going to be too scared that something's going to go wrong. So I'd rather take the chance and deal with what happens as a result of that than not do this. I want that to go back a little bit. So I'm going to turn my paper on an angle because I want it to travel this way. With my spray bottle, I'm going to let it travel to keep that horizon kind of nondescript. And I'm just kind of patient. I want to see what's going to happen. And I'm liking what's happening. Sort of got a little stuck there. Again, with just a damp brush, just slightly going to help it feather down because I really don't want to affect that at all. I'm happy with that. Now, I want to deal with this up here, okay? I'm really happy with like everything that happened here. I really am. This needs, in my mind's eye, needs some work in this upper left corner. So that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to try my fan brush this time. Now, when I use a fan brush, what I don't do is I don't just use it like that, okay? Making a mark like that, an even mark. No, that's not what I do. What I like to do is use it on its, I'm going to go closer and show you what's happening here. So I will not use it this way, you know, just flat that way. I'm sort of on the edge of it, and it's giving me fabulous marks. So I've seen fan brushes. I was never a fan of a fan brush, but I have since I started working with it this way. I love it. I love it. It's my new favorite thing. And I do have new favorite things. And look at those marks. Just so great. So much fun to do it. It naturally separates for you. But if you just use it like that, it's still creating very even marks. So this way it helps you break them up. Yeah, I'm a fan of the fan brush. I never was, and now I am. And this should look uneven. It should look messy. You know, it should not be perfect. It should be a little bit scumbly. Now notice my marks got a little thinner, finer, smaller as I moved away from the front of the painting. That helps say perspective, right? Now, I want to bring in the photograph, and I want to say, the question is did we make it painterly? Just want to adjust this a little bit and have that move into there a little bit. Is it painterly? Is it even better than the photograph? Well, I don't know. This photo is so damn good. Oh, I don't know if I could improve it, but I think it's fun and I really like what happened with it. So, and I'm willing to take that chance when I paint that it may not look exactly like the photo, but I'm not here to be an order taker. I'm here to be painterly and to interpret what I see. And this is my lost edge. I like to have at least one area that has a lost edge, and that's right there. It's just lost, meaning I really can't see where the body ends and the water begins. Everything doesn't have to be a hard edge. And again, I think that this is just one of those scary things about painting with watercolors is not knowing when or where or how or why to have a lost edge. I definitely think I could do some more work up here, but again, I don't want to touch it because it's drying and maybe some of these wiggly things coming down like we see in the photo. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it needs it. I just need to sit with it and just kind of rest it a little bit. And of course, taking our mats and just saying, do I like all the corners that I did? Do I want to reduce them maybe a little bit? Yeah, I could see having less up in this corner here, maybe. I don't know. I kind of like the drama of it, but I could see carrying more of these cooler colors up here. Maybe a little bit more violet. I'm playing with that. So, yeah, I think my masking was okay. I think my over here kept a nice, deep, rich, dark color. I don't know what I'll do up there. I think this needs a little bit more work. But those are things that sometimes just need to sit and you need to look at it with fresh eyes. And that's always really important to take your work, look at it from a distance, right? Look at it from a distance, put it vertical and see how it works, see how it looks, see how it responds to your eye fresh. Because so what I saw was a lot of people have this kind of stuck area here. So I'm going to tone mine down with a really a nice color that will just kind of keep a little bit of the color there, but tone it down. So I'm using my indigo and a little bit of violet and also, you know, keeping in mind that we want to have it be, you know, a little bit darker in here. And I could actually do a little bit more of that and go a little darker in there. So I'm going to add all of the colors here. And I'm going to let them kind of mix. Let it be very watery. And just to tone it down a little bit. Of course, you could tone it down with, you know, I'm going to use all the colors that I used in the painting to tone it down a little bit. And I didn't really want to see like a line there. So I'm going to go a little closer and I'm going to show you how I'm going to just get rid of any, I didn't really, personally on mine, I didn't want to see a horizon line on mine. So that's what I'm going to go in and kind of correct right now. And this is how I would do it if you wanted to. And it's probably good to paint it upside down because I want it to go above that left wing, okay? So I'm going to just add a lot of color in here. And I want to have it move into that area. Now, I just want to really, and some of you may want to just see how this works with reverse definition. If you lost the beak or at all, just kind of come in with a nice pointed brush. And just come up to it. I'm tilting my paper a little bit. And now I'm just going to carry this away. Okay, let's take a look at that.
That's
And
exactly what you were telling me to do. It looks really good.
Yeah, and I'm actually using my brush right now to sort of dry brush into this drier area, just to, again, give it a little bit more depth. So, and you know, that thirsty brush, you really only get that if you really have a dry piece of paper. It's the only way. So I'm just going to, again, this idea that I just add a little bit of water and I just let it kind of flow down, come into the wing a little bit. Okay, let's take a look at that. Starting to really get a little bit more of that murky thing that I was looking for there. And it toned down this corner, and I think I could tone this down a little bit more. A good color to tone things down with is either neutral tint, and that's a great color to use if you have it. It's a non-color, really. It's just a color that tones colors down. So that's a really good one. Or your Shadow Violet or Moon Glow is a good way to go too. This is super wet up here. I'm going to see what happens when I kind of let that dry a little bit. I sort of have a drying line here. So I take a brush and I just make sure it's not too wet. And I just let that kind of come into that dry area a little bit. Okay. It's a little tricky, but that's the way to do it. You could take your rigger and build some reeds if you wanted with a little bit of water, pushes the paint aside and kind of creates that. And you could also hit it with your dot sprayer. Didn't really want a big dot there. So a couple little things that you could do to sort of soften that edge. And of course, it comes down to, if you're still not happy with that edge, crop it out. I'm happy with the rest of it. That upper corner, I think I'm happier with it just looking like that. But you can't do dry brush marks. If your paper is wet or even damp, it's really going to shift a whole lot of your experience with dry brush. Dry brush just means that your paper's dry, and your brush is thirsty for water, just thirsty brush. So I think that that will tone that area down in a nice way. I'm going to splatter it a little bit. These are techniques that just help you to get an area to just be a little bit broken up and not so literal. And if you're afraid of any splatter going on the rest of your painting, simply take a paper towel or a tissue and cover it up, right? If you just don't want it like in that area there, let's say, or down here, fine, that's okay. It doesn't have to. When you cover it, it will give you a little bit more freedom to sort of really hit it with a lot of splatter if you wanted to try that. And of course, that frees everything up when we do our splatter. Little orange. And of course, I splatter, it gets all over everything on my desk, but I like it. I like it better. Okay. I still have this mark there. I'm probably going to work on that a little bit more, but it's too damp and it's not the time to touch it. But that is it today, kids. So that's today's painting lesson. As you saw, I had some things that happened on my painting. That happens. And the idea is to time how you're going to fix it, when you're going to fix it. Are you going to do it wet into wet? Are you going to wait till it dries? Are you going to feather it in? These are things that you need to have miles on your brushes and have lots of paintings that you're not happy with to understand how to get there. It's not instantaneous. It is just something that, you have to keep doing. And then, you make those mistakes and you figure it out and you know not to do that again. And if you do it again, then you know not to do it again after that. That's just the way it is. If you like this recording, I have lots of things on my website for you. I also have a YouTube subscription that you could go to. And so, follow me. I'm going to be uploading lots of free videos for you and a lot of paid for videos. So full length classes that you could follow along, and you could have the recording link for as long as you keep going to it. Anyway, this is Jan Guarino, Fearless Watercolors. I will see you again soon. Bye now.